Here's a sneak peek of what your Echo can do that we're going to discuss in this very episode.
Moving Amazon Music.
But here's an FYI. There we go. Now we're listening to it here.
Okay, I've turned on the explicit filter for music.
Bam.
To turn it off, just ask.
Well, as you can tell from our prelude today, we're going to be dealing with some things related to music on your Amazon Echo. We've covered this in many podcasts in the past and seasons, well, probably the seasons, but especially 1 and 2 quite a bit, and different music providers. But we're going to be covering some kind of outlier concepts today, and I'll mention what those are in just a moment. First, I'd like to welcome our new listeners who've never heard our podcast before. I apologize if you hear a lawnmower in the background. They're mowing the grass outside of my home studio here today. But my name is David Ward. I'm an assistive technology instructor with the New Vision program at Goodwill here in Southwest Virginia. And you'll find our podcast little nuggetized episodes, 5 to 15 minutes long. We try to keep it that length anyway. And where we introduce new things on your Echo, we dust off some of the oldies and the goodies. We talk about new hardware. And we really talk about it from every imaginable perspective. You could be a parent. You could have little ones. You could have teenagers. You could be a caregiver. You could be a senior. You could have home automation things. You could have a disability. And we talk about all the different types of ways in which the echoes and different things and stuff can be really useful to you. Now, as I mentioned today, we're going to be talking about music, which we've talked about many, many times before. In particular, one new thing we're going to talk about today is called AutoPlay. That's right, AutoPlay. Never heard of this one before. May have been around, but I just wasn't familiar with it. I think I might have accidentally turned it on before, or Amazon might have been demoing it or testing it out, because I feel like it's happened to me before, but never knew what AutoPlay was until today. So you can learn that too as well. Some other things we're going to look at too is some former commands, but I thought we'd dust these off a little bit because they're rarely used. Move my music here, which is the ability to move your music from one Echo to another, or maybe you were listening on your phone or something and then you got to work. We're also going to be talking about explicit lyrics, and we'll just talk about some generalities with music as well. But the AutoPlay thing in particular, we'll introduce as kind of a new thing that I may have been around, but I don't remember it. Anywho, before we get into that in any sort of depth, as usual, we're going to go to a brief message about our podcast, and then we'll be right back. This episode is brought to you by New Vision at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys, and also made possible in part by a grant from the Virginia Board for the Blind and Vision Impaired. New Vision is a program of Goodwill that provides information services and assistive technology training to individuals with visual impairments. Goodwill Industries of the Valleys is a nonprofit organization serving Central, Southwest, and Southside Virginia. Goodwill's mission is to empower individuals, strengthen families, and inspire communities. These shows are provided for educational purposes. This podcast may not be retransmitted, sold, or reproduced without written permission from New Vision. Hello again. Welcome back to the podcast. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be dealing with music today on your Amazon Echo. So probably one of the most prolific and used features of the Echo, I would have to say, is music for sure. I mean, podcast is up there and alarms and timers is up there, but music is a huge, huge thing. After all, they're pretty much called smart speakers, right? That's almost like a vernacular for these kind of devices. So that kind of implies what we would use a stereo or speaker system for. And so really, music is a cornerstone of the Amazon Echo and is very closely aligned with their music services that they rolled out and have been growing. I have an Amazon Unlimited Music package, which I'm not even too sure if I really need anymore because I'm also a Prime member and I pretty much get access to the whole catalog now. So I'm not really too sure. Of course, the unlimited package gives me, I think certain scalability, listen to particular albums from beginning to end, maybe certain search features, I'm not too sure, and maybe the ability to make playlists versus kind of the shuffle mode of traditional Amazon Prime music. But today we're going to be talking about AutoPlay, which is a feature I was unfamiliar with. I do believe this one I read, yes, in the newsletter can apply both to Amazon Music, whether that be the unlimited or probably even if you're a Prime member, but also to an Apple Music. So if you had Apple Music as your default music provider, they can also work with that. Don't think it can work with Spotify or Pandora, although Pandora kind of natively, I think, has this feature built in. I'm not too sure about Spotify. But anyway, so what is AutoPlay? Well, before I demo it here, and I talk about it a little more, if you do have an A-lady in hearing distance of me, I would ask you that you might want to turn that one off. If it's maybe even in the adjacent room, they could hear my voice, because I'm going to say the A-lady name, and I don't want to trigger your echo at home while I'm doing this. So I'll just give you a second to do that. Alexa, turn on AutoPlay.
AutoPlay is turned on for supported music providers.
There we are. So what did we just turn on? What is AutoPlay? AutoPlay is a kind of a curious feature that I think has maybe been toggled on and off by Amazon, but you can actually manually turn it on. And what it means is that you're saying you're playing an album of your choice, some genre you like, or particular artist. Maybe you hit the end of that album or even a single song, and it will try and automatically find similar music, maybe by the same artist or not, and try to continue things playing. So it's kind of like a different twist on loop mode. If you said loop or whatever, you could, or you could replay an entire album or you could replay an entire song. But this is kind of the ability, well, I don't want to maybe listen to the whole album all over again, but maybe we hit the end of the album. I want to move on to similar music of the same kind of genre or something like that, maybe even by the same artist. So that is AutoPlay, and you can just say turn on AutoPlay. Now, an additional feature I was going to talk to you about was Move My Music Here. Move My Music Here. So you have music playing on a different device, maybe downstairs, and now you want to play upstairs, or maybe you were listening to it on your smartphone using the A-Lady app, Amazon Music app. So you want to transfer music from here to there. So first off, let me get some music going elsewhere. And let's try that. I'll get it going in the living room, which you can probably hear. Alexa, play music by Jonathan Colton.
Shuffling songs by Jonathan Colton on Amazon Music.
So there you go. That's Jonathan Colton. I don't think you'll mind. He has a lot of Creative Commons music, so hopefully, and I'm giving him attribution here. So say you got music playing in the other room or you're moving rooms and you want to play here, maybe in your office, or like I said, you're listening on a mobile device and you came into work or something. Then you just walk up to your device and you say, Alexa, move my music here.
Moving Amazon Music.
But here's an FYI. There we go. Now we're listening to it here. So you get the idea there is now we're listening to the music on the device that I moved to. So pretty cool, pretty cool. I'm not too sure if it works. In the past, I didn't have a perfect experience with this. Let me stop her first. Alexa, stop. So first off, I don't think I had a good experience with this in the past necessarily with if I had stopped the music and then I walked into the place and said, play the music here. Maybe it's because it kind of dropped. It didn't see that it was still presently streaming. I'm not too sure. But this, as you saw, just worked perfectly fine. And so pretty cool. Maybe that's what I need to do, and I'm doing wrong. I need to leave it playing on my iPhone until I actually walk in the office and then say this command. So that might work better. Of course, they might have refined it since then. Okay, the last thing I'm going to mention real quick The other command I was going to mean is the ability to filter explicit lyrics. So maybe you have family members or you just don't want to hear that kind of stuff. You can filter your music selection by, things that it's not going to play explicit. Sometimes albums are even have an explicit version and a clean version. So this would be an easy way to automatically tailor that. And what you say is, Alexa, turn explicit filtering on.
Okay, I've turned on the explicit filter for music.
Bam.
To turn it off, just ask.
Just ask. Okay, so there you go. I have found on occasions, I usually run with this on, I have found on occasions that I've had to turn this off for kind of bizarre reasons. I think probably because albums that were listed on Amazon were not listed properly, and maybe they were coming up because the system didn't know what they were. It flagged them as possibly explicit and it won't allow me to play them. There's nothing explicit in the album. So I have run into occasions where I had to turn this off to play a very specific album. So anyway, those are some generic ideas dealing with autoplay, play your music here, explicit lyrics filtering, and there's just so many cool things you can do with Amazon Music. You can look at our back catalog of podcasts, but some of the things I really love is the ability to, say the lyrics of a song. Maybe I forgot, and it will go find that song more than often because it has the lyrics built into the catalog of a lot of their songs. Another neat thing in this one I love with my students and things is we find an album, or we find the top Billboard hits from the year they graduated high school or something like that, or the year you were born or something like that. It's kind of neat to think, oh, my parents were going to the hospital with me when they're pregnant with me, and that was what was on the radio. So pretty neat things you can do in that genre. And so it's a lot of fun, And you can be very specific too. You can say play jazz from 1947, or you can say play alternative rock from 1995, or, just really, really flexible in what you do. So it's super, super cool if you haven't played along with Amazon Music. And now that most Prime members have access to a huge part of the catalog, there's a good chance you could do a lot of those things too. I don't know if you can do them all, but you can do probably some of them for sure, especially these filtering, autoplay, and things like that. Music here, play it here instead of elsewhere. All right, well, that will bring our show to a close. But if you have thoughts or suggestions for me about a future episode, a problem or a topic you'd like to see addressed in a future episode, we would love to hear your feedback. There's been a lot of budget cuts in the industry and the IT field, computer space as a whole, including Amazon, and there's even, things possibly affecting the division that develops these skills. And so the communication coming out of Amazon isn't always the greatest about these new skills, new features, and things like that. So we do at times, try to, find good nuggets to bring up to you, but I would love to hear from our audience as well. So Facebook and Twitter are great ways, use the right word, great ways, use an actual word, great ways to reach out to us at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys, or you can even drop us an email at info@goodwillvalleys.com. And we would love to hear your feedback and thoughts or suggestions. Feel free to tell your friends about us, retweet us on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, thumbs us up, whatever. That would be super cool. Leave us a comment too. We would love that on the podcast player of your choice. Maybe it's iTunes or Google Play or wherever. We'd love to do that. Maybe I'll even go in there and see if we have some feedback from some listeners that we can share. That'd be pretty cool as well. Well, until next time, I think you know what time it is. It's time to turn the ears back on your Echo and start practicing some of the many things that you've learned. I'm David Ward for the New Vision program, and we do thank you for listening.
Thanks, Dave. Let me tell you a bit more. Let me put on my official sounding voice. Ahem. This episode is brought to you by New Vision at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys, and also made possible in part by a grant from the Virginia Board for the Blind and Vision Impaired. New Vision is a program of Goodwill that provides information services and assistive technology training to individuals with visual impairments. Goodwill Industries of the Valleys is a nonprofit organization serving Central, Southwest, and Southside Virginia. Goodwill's mission is to empower individuals, strengthen families, and inspire communities. These shows are provided for educational purposes. This podcast may not be retransmitted, sold, or reproduced without written permission from New Vision. Phew. Thanks for listening.